Let's switch channels. This show is dull.
You bet.
What is that?
It looks like two ancient old guys sitting in a theater box watching television.
That's crazy. No one would watch junk like that.
His creations were part of American culture for decades. His puppets sold everything from coffee to snacks. His characters on Sesame Street entertained children for years. And his Muppet Show characters dominated television and later cinema all throughout the 70s and 80s. The man who once said, "The most sophisticated people I know, inside they are children," went on to let his inner child create some of the most beloved characters in entertainment history. Join me as I take you briefly through the life and world of Jim Henson.
Edgar Bergen, 25 seconds to curtain, Mr. Bergen.
Oh, thank you. Did you hear that, Charlie? I just can't believe my eyes. Did he go yet? Yes, he just stuck his head in the door and left. Yeah, I don't mean him. I mean him.
I just can't believe my eyes. A stick of wood that talks.
James Maury Henson was born September 24th, 1936, in Greenville, Mississippi. His parents were Betty Marcella and Paul Henson Sr., who was an agronomist for the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Jim was raised as a Christian Scientist and would be one until the early 70s. He grew up in Leland, Mississippi, but moved to Maryland in the late 40s. The family getting their first television was a big event, and Jim became heavily influenced by performers like Edgar Bergen and Charlie McCarthy, and early television puppets on the Kukla, Fran, and Ollie show. Jim went to Hyattsville High School until it closed in 1951. He finished out his schooling at Northwestern High School, where he first joined the Puppetry Club. He then enrolled at the University of Maryland, College Park, where he continued puppetry class, and this is where he first met his future wife, Jane Nebel. During high school, Jim had begun working for WTOP-TV in 1954 on a Saturday morning kids show called The Junior Morning Show. He was hired to manipulate the marionettes, but the show got canceled after only 3 weeks. Despite this, the station kept him on to lip sync on Roy Meacham's Saturday show. This too was eventually canceled, but Roy recommended Jim to WRC-TV, where Jim, with the help of Jane Nebel, began performing shows with his puppet creations. This led to Jim and Jane getting offers for their own nightly segment, which they called Sam and Friends. These characters would wind up being forerunners to the famous Muppets we now know, and even featured a prototype of Kermit. Sam and Friends ran until 1961, and during the show Jim was experimenting with different techniques, which changed the way puppets were used on television. Until that point, it was standard for puppets to occupy a small stationary proscenium, where they would perform for the camera in a fixed position. Henson believed that to convey his puppets having more life and realness to them, that they needed to move and be dynamic. He built his puppets out of foam rubber and other flexible material, rather than the old standard of carving wooden characters. In fact, his first iteration of Kermit was made using a halved tennis ball and fabric from an old coat, and denim from a pair of jeans for the sleeve that would cover Henson's arm while puppeteering. He named his creations Muppets, a conglomeration of both marionette and puppet. The flexibility of his characters allowed him to express more emotion from his characters than standard puppets or marionettes at the time. Sam and Friends would go on to be a success for the station. After a few initial doubts and fears from Henson that puppeteering wouldn't be a viable career choice, he and Jane took the plunge, both professionally and personally, as they formed Muppets Inc. in 1958 and got married in 1959. During the late 50s, Jim and Jane's Muppets were seen on a variety of talk shows like The Steve Allen Show, The Jack Paar Program, and The Ed Sullivan Show in 1966. This exposure led to the Muppets being used in various commercials, the most well-known being a series of commercials for Wilkins Coffee, starring two characters, Wilkins and Watkins. In each commercial, Wilkins would extol the product, while Watkins would be the naysayer. It usually ended up with Wilkins causing physical harm to Watkins in various ways. The commercials were such a success that other companies such as Merita Breads and Standard Oil of Ohio used the two characters to promote their own products as well. In 1963, Jim and Jane moved to New York City.
New York City?
Get a rope.
Jane quit performing to raise the children, so Jim hired two other people, Jerry Jewell and Frank Oz, to replace her. Oz in particular wound up becoming lifetime close friends with Jim, and their memorable pairings together as Bert and Ernie, Kermit and Fozzie, and Kermit and Miss Piggy are legendary. In the many years to come, Henson's team would grow substantially to include many other talented puppeteers. The first Muppet character to make an appearance on a talk show by themselves was Ralph the dog, an anthropomorphized dog that played the piano. Ralph made several appearances on The Jimmy Dean Show from 1963 to 1966. Around this time, Jim was also experimenting with filmmaking, and made several experimental films, including Timepiece, which was nominated for Best Live Action Short Film in 1965, and The Cube in 1969. As he was doing this, more ad sponsorships would follow for his Muppet characters, including Wilson's Meats, Royal Crown Cola, La Choy, and Frito-Lay, which would feature his Cookie Monster creation for the first time. Speaking of the Cookie Monster, in 1969, the Children's Television Workshop was in the process of creating a new children's television show, and they were so impressed by Jim Henson's work that they asked him to collaborate. That show would be called Sesame Street, a show that would go on to be considered perhaps the most successful children's show of all time, racking up a mind-boggling 222 Emmys and 11 Grammy Awards. A portion of each show was set aside for skits involving Jim Henson's creations, and he delivered some of the most iconic characters in television history, with Oscar the Grouch, Grover, the aforementioned Cookie Monster, Big Bird, and my favorites, Bert and Ernie. The massive success of Sesame Street allowed Jim Henson to finally get out of the work of producing commercials, which he greatly appreciated. However, by the early 70s, both Henson and Oz felt that the Muppets were being typecast for only children. So in 1975, they made a bold decision to have their Muppets appear on the new adult sketch comedy show Saturday Night Live. A new character named Gorch was created, and 11 episodes were made to run from 1975 to 1976. The segments didn't go over very well, and while Henson really wanted it to work, he said that he and the SNL writers just never really gelled well together, as the SNL writers often scoffed at the prospect of writing for puppets. Henson then tried to develop a weekly show of his own for the Muppets, only to be rejected by American networks as they felt his creation was only for children. But then he pitched the idea to a British impresario named Lou Grade, who liked the idea and financed the show. Henson and his team moved to England and began shooting what would become the iconic Muppet Show, starring his earlier creation Kermit as the host. The show featured all of the famous Muppets: Fozzie, Miss Piggy, Gonzo, and Dr. Teeth and the Electric Mayhem Band, with their chaotic drummer, Animal. The show went on to become highly successful and led to the famous Muppet movie in 1979. The song Rainbow Connection, co-written by the legendary Paul Williams, reached number 25 on the Billboard charts, and is still seen as an iconic song, even outside of the Muppets world. After the theatrical success of the Muppet movie in 1979, they went on to star in several other movies like The Great Muppet Caper and The Muppets Take Manhattan. However, before these events, in 1980, Henson was approached by George Lucas to help create a Muppet-like character for his movie The Empire Strikes Back. The resulting character of Yoda needs no introduction, and while Lucas initially wanted Henson to puppeteer and provide the voice for Yoda, Henson himself suggested Frank Oz, and of course, Oz went on to do the stellar job of voicing and puppeteering the iconic character. After The Great Muppet Caper, Henson wanted to dive into more adult and serious tones with the movie The Dark Crystal, which was initially not financially successful, but has grown a cult fan base in the years since. In the same year, he also founded the Jim Henson Foundation to promote the art of puppetry in the United States. After The Muppets Take Manhattan in 1984, Henson worked on the film Labyrinth in 1986. This film turned out to be his first total financial flop. Jim became quite demoralized over this, according to his son Brian Henson. In 1987, Henson created the show Fraggle Rock and the animated series The Muppet Babies, which derived from a scene in The Muppets Take Manhattan where Piggy is dreaming of meeting Kermit when they were babies. In 1988, he took a turn towards the adult again with the darker-themed show The Storyteller, which won an Emmy. The next year, he returned with the Jim Henson Hour, which mixed light-hearted Muppet segments with more adult segments. This won him another Emmy, but was canceled after only 12 episodes. In 1989, Henson had entered negotiations to sell his interest in the Muppets to Disney for around $150 million. He was hoping that he could spend more time with his family after doing so. Unfortunately for him, that would never really come to pass.
Excuse me, guys. We're looking for Hollywood. Do you know anything about the way to Hollywood? Hollywood, California? No, it's over near Los Angeles. Have you ever been to Excuse me. Have you ever been to Los Angeles? No, it's a little town where they make movies. You know? Did you ever go to the movies? These are natives. They don't know much about movies.
It's certainly not a career that one would plan. You know, you wouldn't decide to become a puppeteer, I don't think, in your life. I was interested in television and films and art, and actually then when I went into puppetry, I found that I could combine all of this stuff.
On May 4th, 1990, Henson made a final appearance on the Arsenio Hall show with his most beloved creation, Kermit the Frog. At the time, he had complained that he was tired and had a sore throat. Just 11 days later, on May 15th, Henson awoke having trouble breathing and coughing up blood. He was taken to New York Presbyterian Hospital in Manhattan and was found to have multiple abscesses in both of his lungs. He was put on a ventilator, but his condition continued to worsen over the next several hours. He was given a treatment of very aggressive antibiotics, but it was too late. He passed away in the early hours of May 16, 1990, at the young age of 53. The worlds and characters created by Jim Henson have dazzled, endeared, taught, and entertained literally hundreds of millions of children and adults over the years. His legacy is one that stands the test of time and can never be erased. For a shy Jim Henson, that need to entertain and bring smiles to the faces of his audience manifested in characters that were beloved by generations of people. The world got a little darker and colder after Jim Henson left this planet, and I only hope that wherever his soul is now, he still understands how much he meant, not only to his family and loved ones, but to the entire world. If you've never watched the original Muppet Show, I encourage you to do so. If you've never seen the original films from the late 70s and 80s, then check them out. And if you weren't fortunate enough to have grown up watching the original Sesame Street from the 70s and 80s, and you have children, I guarantee that watching those old shows versus Cocomelon or the inane slop we have today will make your kids smarter, better, and happier. I know it did for my generation.